Okay, we are live. Wait 30 seconds before you curse because then
I was going to.
yeah. Anyway, so first things first before we start, they finally announced a Mortal Kombat collection, and I think everybody was like, "It's about time."
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we've had arcade collections before. This is the first time we're getting not just Mortal Kombat 4, but also they're porting like all the home versions of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Well, almost all of them. Like,
Yeah, most of them.
the ones that probably don't cause legal or compliance issues with various companies. The ones that can be safely brought to all consoles. Ones that are worthwhile, let's
Well,
say.
I really hope it has Trilogy and Gold. It better have them.
I think it probably is going to.
They had an Atari collection that had DLC. This company. The thing that's curious to me is that the collection includes the Game Boy version of Deadly Alliance.
But
and that's the only version of Deadly Alliance it has right now.
Yeah, I would have figured they would have saved that for the 3D collection or whatever they do.
It is a strange logic, but maybe they were just going for the older portable consoles first. There was a statement that said that they did want to eventually do the 3D games, but they said it wasn't time just yet. Like maybe in the future, like they're kind of implying that this collection won't have Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, or Shaolin Monks. That those would be reserved for a future collection.
Well, here's the thing: is I don't think they've ever done a second collection of any of the IPs they've done. This company has done a lot of collections. They've done like Street Fighter and SNK.
They did TMNT.
TMNT, yeah. They've done quite a few things, but they've never done a sequel to a collection. But they have done DLC, so I feel like it's more likely we get the 3D era as a DLC pack than as a second game.
Well,
but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully they'll add the Unchained characters to Deception.
I mean, just hook it to my veins.
I mean,
they're probably not going to like make additions to the core games.
Unchained, no, what would happen is they would have multiple versions of Deception on the disc, the same way that you're getting like Mortal Kombat 2 Arcade and SNES and Genesis. You'd get Deception and then Deception GameCube and then Unchained.
Most likely.
And it's good for me because like finally I have a way to actually record these games in a convenient manner.
I've had no inconvenience recording piracy, but
well, you see, that's the thing about it, right? Is there's nothing stopping anyone with a PC, and I stress PC, from going out and playing these games anytime that they want to. You know, it's just that not everyone is able to make or willing to make that effort, and there's a lot of setup time, and it's a lot of involvement. So this is good for the masses who just want to get up and go and
and also it's the
don't
first
have
time
knowledge of
MK4 Arcade has been properly emulated.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the arcade version of MK4 is not necessarily the best version because only the home versions had Goro and the secret characters.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd use the word best version. It's not the most complete version. I'll say that. Because I remember playing a little bit of MK4 in the arcade, and I remember playing Gold, and even Gold felt like
Gold is a janky, broken mess. I'm just talking about like N64 Mortal Kombat 4. I think it's a little bit better than the arcade.
Probably not.
It'd be nice if they put that on the mature N64 app on Switch. That'd be nice.
I mean, you once said that the N64 Trilogy was the best version of Trilogy, and
yeah, but there were limitations to Trilogy that 4 doesn't actually have because it has a smaller roster.
I don't think 4 even has the FMV endings on N64, does it?
Well, the arcade did not have the FMV endings. The arcade had the 64 endings. Those were made for the PlayStation.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am very sure of that.
I feel like I remember seeing them in the arcade.
I have very vivid memories of N64 arcade. I played it more than I played 2 or 3.
Well, actually, I think Reiko's original ending didn't have the part where he gets Shao Kahn's helmet.
Yes, that's true. In the
was an addition.
Arcade and 64, he just walks through a portal, and that's the whole ending. The Shao Kahn's helmet part was added for the FMV versions, which are on PlayStation and in gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing that always comes to my mind is like, there's a famous quote from Gabe Newell of Steam Valve. He said, "Piracy is a service issue. Most people pirate games because they can't get them any other way, because you won't re-release your shit.
Yeah.
If you would sell it to me, then I wouldn't have to do this."
I will say this. I think this collection did allow me to forgive Ed a little bit.
I mean, it's not Ed's... Well, Ed has wanted to re-release stuff for a very long time. He's been talking about wanting to put Shaolin Monks back out there.
And WB always said no.
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
talk that while they were having discussions with him about this, like during the end of the MK1 development period, Ed was feeling apparently nostalgic for once, like he missed the old days. That's part of the reason that this is actually happening.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to playing Arcade MK4 because
it is worth noting that this
good graphic fidelity.
Ed is like not in charge of the team that's making this. This is a third party, but I'm sure that he was part of cutting the deal and whatnot. You know?
Yeah, he wants this to happen. And
the thing is, I might be skipping ahead to the other piece of news we got this week, but people don't necessarily know this, but Sean Hemmerich has kind of been above Ed in charge since, like, Midway ended.
Yeah.
Like, Ed is the creative director, and Sean Hemmerich is the executive producer of NRS.
Yeah. And, but I'll tell you this. I have a story about Sean Hemmerich, and that he was always kind of an ass. Like, during the days of, like, the 3D era, like, on Mortal Kombat Online, they would have Fight Night after every game released, which you two probably remember. You know, where fans would ask...
Yeah. Hemmerich entered the company by being the guy in charge of the team that made Shaolin Monks.
Yeah. And I just remember, it was the Shaolin Monks Fight Night, and I remember he was really rude and condescending, like, during the chat. It got to the point where a fan asked, "Is Sean always this much of an asshole?"
Well, you know, there were those stories coming out when, like, in the news, there was a lot of, like, bad news about around 11 about crunch and things like that. There were anonymous reports from ex-employees that Hemmerich was verbally abusive in the workplace, that he would scream at interns and stuff like that, and that
when a bunch of leaks happened, he would apparently like get a bunch of people together, and the phrase that he used was apparently, "The person next to you is fucking you right now," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the less that we talk about this asshole, the better. We have a good collection of Mortal Kombat games, so who gives a fuck?
And and he will. I mean, he just got promoted to vice president or something of WBB.
Yeah, he's now in charge of not just Mortal Kombat games, but also DC games. That's the basic gist of it.
Which I'm assuming, apparently Gunn wants to, but I hear Gunn wants to make DC games that tie into his universe or something.
Well, it's unclear if he's just, like, consulting on them, like, hey, put this costume in. You know, like, when Injustice 1 came out, there were Man of Steel outfits.
Yeah, because I was...
Maybe it's something like that, or maybe he's, like, advising, hey, instead of Injustice 3, why don't you make the next Injustice game be set in this universe, and we won't do evil Superman, which I would be for.
Yeah.
But the general gist of things is that if Hemmerich is now in charge of MK and DC games, and they're not making any DC games except Injustice 3, then technically nothing has changed.
And also, well, like you said, I don't think anything will change for the better, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's Warner Brothers. The best days are behind them. It is what it is.
Yeah, but okay, I think we've talked about what recent news a little bit.
Yes, I have
Let's-
no interest in any of this because I'm getting a collection of the games I actually give a shit about.
Yeah.
There is that.
I'll be getting that on Switch too, actually.
I'll probably be multi-platform dipping. I'll pick it up on Steam, definitely. I'm going to get it on PS5. Hell, if I have some spare scratch around at the time, I might even just triple dip and get it for PS4 for completion's sake.
Okay. Well,
Hey, I want to actually support the games that I love and that I enjoy. That's kind of important. Nothing speaks more than cash.
well, I think the only 4 games that are missing so far are Trilogy, Gold, Mythologies, and Special Forces. And Special Forces is, well, we all know how bad that is.
Well, in the same blurb where they talked about, like, not necessarily doing the 3D games just yet, they also said that, well, we want to put forth a focus as well. Like, it's not just about, like, the greatest hits, it's about a complete package, even, quote, including games that some people may consider bad.
Yeah.
So that's as good as a confirmation to me that we're probably getting the 3D. I mean, we're probably getting the adventure games.
Yeah.
Jackson sub.
Yeah.
I wish we could get. I wish they'd put the demo where you play as Sonya in there, because that's
That'd
a
be
better
nice.
game.
Well, I think we. All right. Let's talk about. Well, let's get into what we were going to talk about. Before we talk about MK4, I guess we'll briefly cover Mythologies. There's no need to guess what happened because we pretty much know what happened in that game.
I mean, MK4 and Mythologies are kind of 2 parts of a story, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the prequel and the sequel.
Mythologies is basically it's set before the original game, but it's basically it sets up a lot of MK4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the basic gist is it's the origin story of Scorpion and Sub-Zero. But it is tied directly into the Villains of 4 because the reason Sub-Zero kills Scorpion is because Quan Chi hired them both to do the same job because he wanted one of them to kill the other so that he could bring that guy back to kill the first guy, and then he'd have both of them as undead servants.
Yeah. And yeah.
But it was more about trying to get Shinnok's amulet, which he does, and then Sub-Zero steals it back, except they reveal in 4, I gave you a copy. You stole a copy. I still have the real one.
Well,
So.
I think no, Quan Chi just didn't give Shinnok the real one.
Yes, that's the thing. He kept the real one for himself, and he gave Shinnok a fake. And so when Sub-Zero stole it back, he stole the fake. So
Yeah.
Quan Chi has had the real amulet secretly throughout the entire original trilogy and just hasn't been using it. He's been waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
I've always wondered just how Shinnok never knew. Like, it had to have been a hell of a duplicate.
Yeah, it's got to be real convincing. And I think the other thing is whenever we see Shinnok with it, Quan Chi is somewhere nearby. So I always kind of figured that he was always like, Shinnok would go to shoot a fireball and Quan Chi would be in the background, like subtly wiggling his fingers to make sure that fireball comes out because he's the one who's really doing it.
Excellent projectile spam, my liege.
Yeah, and well, I am again skipping forward here, but Quan Chi not being there to do that is probably the reason Shinnok loses at the end of 4.
Yeah, we'll cover that later. Well, with Mythologies, it's like, it does actually set up Sub-Zero becoming Noob Saibot, even though that wasn't the plan at the time.
Yeah,
no,
well,
it doesn't. It's just one of the funniest things about, like, the whole Sub-Zero Noob Saibot angle, as Mythologies inadvertently sets it up, is leaving the entire game on this open-ended question of what happens to you, what happens to Sub-Zero, what happens to me, if I don't stop killing people. You can change your life, says Raiden. It's up to you to change it.
Yeah.
And it's almost a shame that MK4 doesn't do anything with Noob Saibot, but just The sheer fact that he's just there the way he is kind of like puts a bookend to that question.
Yeah, it's a series of like convenient coincidences that allowed fans to like suggest to John Vogel, "Hey, could this be that?" And Vogel's like, "That's actually really clever. I'm going to steal that." Because yeah, if you look at it, so chronologically, you start with Bihan, Sub-Zero in Mythologies, doing bad guy stuff for money, as a ninja does, and accidentally endangering the world. Raiden forces him to clean up his mess, and at the end he goes, "So you gonna thank me?" And Raiden goes, "Thank yourself for cleaning up your own mess."
Yeah.
And then the whole game, Quan Chi has been like taunting Sub-Zero, like, "Hey, only bad people can exist in hell. Raiden couldn't come himself. He had to send you because you're bad, which means when you die, this is where you're gonna go." That's what hell is for, buddy. So when Sub-Zero gets out of it at the end, he's like, "Hey, was that true what he said? Am I going to go to hell when I die?" And Raiden's like, "Yeah, but you still got time, right? You're not dead yet. You can fix it. You can redeem yourself."
Well, what I loved about where he's like, Raiden's like, "Well, you can change your ways," and Sub-Zero's like, "Was that a yes or a no?" I was like, "That was obviously a yes."
Yeah. So Sub-Zero, having received this advice, just goes straight back to the Lin Kuei and takes his next job.
Which is a little bit of a little screwy because it's Shang Tsung inviting him to the tournament.
Well, that's only screwy if you don't think about it. See, the thing that people get caught on is that the original Sub-Zero's original bio in MK1 is that his reason for going to the tournament is to assassinate Shang. Someone hired the Lin Kuei to kill Shang, and we never find out who. But here's the thing. You can't actually go to the tournament unless Shang invites you, so that scene had to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's allowed at the tournament unless they've gotten an invitation from Shang, so Shang would have to invite him, and then someone would have to go, "Hey, I know you're going to the tournament, here's money to kill Shang."
Yeah.
Now, we're not saying it was Quan Chi.
I'm not saying it was Quan Chi. It should be Quan Chi. Like I said, they never actually said who hired Sub-Zero.
One of Shang's wealthy
and they
enemies.
probably never will, because whenever they retell the story now, they have him working for Shang, which is dumb. You know, they just scrap the hired to assassinate him angle, which I do not like. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, they've never said who hired him. And
it was just one of Shang's wealthy enemies or something.
Yes, if the smart thing would be to have it have been Quan Chi in disguise, though, because Quan wants Sub-Zero to die. He's sending Scorpion to the tournament to kill that guy because he wants both of them. You know, he's like, "You will serve me in the Nether Realm." That's one of his catchphrases. So the gist of it, though, is that so Bihan goes to the tournament, and he actually is thinking about redeeming himself. Like, his plan is, okay, I'm going to kill Shang, I'm going to get the reward payout, and I'm not going back to the Lin Kuei. I'm going to run off with the money and live a life of peace. I'm going to, like, you know, go under secret identity, and they'll never find me, and I won't kill anybody anymore. And that's his idea.
Orphanage, clean my soul up.
Yeah.
That's his idea.
That's his idea of changing his ways so that he won't go to hell. The problem is
11th hour redemption is what he's seeking.
The problem is, I would say there's a couple problems here, but the main one is that Scorpion kills him before he can do it.
Puts a damper on the plans, doesn't it?
Yeah. Other problems, other flaws I would point out in his redemption scheme. A, he's not going back for his brother. He's just going to let Kuai Liang rot. B, just retiring isn't redemption. Like, you have to do good deeds.
Yeah. Like, Katana did good deeds. That's probably why she would go to heaven.
But yeah, that's the last time we hear of Bihan until they would eventually reveal. I mean, he's classic Sub-Zero is in UMK3, but he's not canon. So
he's just there.
Yeah.
My favorite bit, one of the bits I always wonder is that during MK4, Scorpion and Noob Saibot had to have encountered each other, and Scorpion like, there's something familiar about you, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, if it was up to me, like if you were rewriting like the old games and sticking to the story, but actually giving them cutscenes, you have to have some interaction between Scorpion and Noob Saibot, where like Scorpion doesn't realize it's Bihan, but something is up. Like one thing I would specifically do is I think it would be better if Noob Saibot in MK4 was the one who told Scorpion Quan Chi killed your family and clan, instead of like the way it actually plays out in the arcade endings is that Quan Chi just admits it. You know, he just comes out and says it.
Okay. Not now, Hector.
Because the other thing is like, unlike the MKX Revenants, Noob Saibot has never been under mind control. And this is like a debated thing, like how much of his personality is corrupted by magical energy and how much is the real him, and like, is Bihan evil? Could he be redeemed? In my opinion, and the text in Deception supports this, Bihan is Noob Saibot. There's no mind control. There's like, the whole thing is that if Quan Chi were mind controlling him, he wouldn't have the ability to act on his own and pursue his own goals and turn against his masters. And in Deception, Noob Saibot is trying to take over the Netherrealm for himself.
Yeah.
So I would seed that in earlier by having him turn Scorpion against Quan Chi in MK4.
Yeah. Well,
and plus, like, that's the game that has Quan Chi and Shinnok and references to mythologies in it. Like, Huai Liang, probably, like, he doesn't find out his brother is Noob until Deception. He probably should have found out in 4. Yeah, like, that's the thing, is that, like, Noob Saibot is the first character whose story ever mentions Shinnok or the Brotherhood of Shadow. Like, the first time in the games anything from Mythology in 4 comes up is Noob's trilogy ending, where it says he's working for Shao Kahn, but actually he's a spy sent by Shinnok's Brotherhood of the Shadow, and that's the first time those names are mentioned. So Noob is the Brotherhood character, and then in 4, he doesn't have a bio or ending. He does nothing. He's a secret character with no text or story, and that's a huge disappointment.
One of his fatalities, I think, is Sub-Zero's reuse, which probably was just them reusing, but it actually hints that he's
he does the freeze and shatter, which was probably, like you said, just they just slapped some assets wherever they felt like, because Noob's other moves, he has like Tanya's fireball, and then they gave him his like clone throw and teleport suplex, which are the teleport suplex is being reused from Reiko, because Reiko. So during the development of 4,
Reiko replaced Noob in the first place.
Yeah, in the very first, like the alpha build of MK4, Noob Saibot was on the main roster, and so was Kitana and Kano. And as they were making the game, they decided they wanted more new characters, so they turned Kano into Jarek, Kitana into Tanya, and Noob into Reiko.
I've never seen Kano in an alpha build. I'm pretty
sure. There's never been any footage of what Kano would have looked like in that game.
Well, obviously very little was changed because Jarek does the eye laser, which doesn't make sense for him to have.
Yeah.
Noob Saibot though made it to the the tour version of the first MK1 released. He was
and in the Nintendo 64 version, if you have like a Game Shark, you can get Kitana to work.
Yeah.
You can still play as her, and she has her fan moves and stuff. It's a little bit jank, but she's there. But
PlayStation
Kano,
version 2, she's there in all.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no Kano left in the code.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, that like, what was I just about to say? Yeah, so there was no like logical reason at the time for Noob Saibot to have the deep freeze.
Yeah.
But it's probably one of the main reasons that fans asked, is he Bi-Han, which led to John Vogel making him Bi-Han. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's that. The fact that he
Yeah.
first shows up after Sub-Zero stops appearing and is replaced by his brother in MK2.
yes.
There's a laundry list of reasons why it worked.
Yeah. Even though it was never intended.
Oh, another thing I was going to point out is, so the alpha build had like Noob Saibot and Katana in it. The second build, the beta, only had one fatality per character, so Jarek didn't have eye lasers yet. So they already knew he wasn't going to be Kato anymore, and they gave him eye lasers in the final build anyway.
Look, when they did Gold, they had Noob Saibot, they had the assets, they had his presence on the roster. They made endings for not only the 4 new characters, but Secret Sector as well.
Yeah.
They still never bothered giving Noob anything.
Yeah.
They had no idea what to do with the guy.
They added the no block ball back in, but
They added that in Gold, yeah.
Yeah, graphically, it was just kind of a dotted line would spin around you. There was no ghost.
Yeah. But
it was like a little white dot.
okay. Yeah. Well, I think what we'll go into now is there was, like, unlike MK3, there was an MK4 comic, but there's a lot of errors with it compared to what the game's bios.
Yeah, well, I mean, the MK2 comic has that slight error of Scorpion revealing his motive too early. But yeah, the 4-1. So the 4-1 has like one scene in it that is really interesting, and it's at the very beginning of the comic. You see Kuai Liang has gone to the Temple of the Elements because he wants to like apologize to the gods for what his brother did in mythologies. And when he gets there, he finds the place is empty and abandoned, and he's like, what's going on? And that's how he kind of finds out that the gods are currently away fighting Shinnok and gets involved in stuff. Yeah. That scene is about, I don't know, 4 panels. The entire rest of the comic is kind of pointless filler. Like, it doesn't tell you any new information that's not already in the game's bios.
I believe John gave the writer some pointers on what to
this
do.
is the thing. The MK4 comic was written by somebody else under John Tobias's supervision, as opposed to the first 2 comics, which were written by Tobias himself.
Yeah.
And this comic was only available, it was sold packaged with the PC port of MK4. That was the only way to get the comic. But the big problem with the comic is that when Johnny Cage shows up for the first time, he's hanging out with Sonya and Jax. And if you read the game bios, where he's supposed to be is in heaven because he died at the end of Trilogy. And he's supposed to be helping the gods fight off Shinnok because, like, the Shinnok's forces are invading heaven first. Like, they had already taken over Edenia, and then they used Edenia to attack heaven. Yeah. And so Johnny helped out fighting up there, and that's how he, like, earned the chance to be resurrected and participate in the game.
Yeah.
And that's not at all in the comic. And I asked Tobias about this once on Twitter, and his answer was basically that he misremembered and thought Johnny got to stay alive at the end of Trilogy. And so that's just the explanation for that, which it's not a very good explanation, because if that's what he thought, then why did he write the bio the way he did?
Yeah. And also, it says Liu Kang is supposed to try to rescue Katana before, but that doesn't happen.
Yeah. There's Liu Kang's bio is like, he finds out that Edenia is being invaded, and he goes alone to try and save Katana, and he gets his ass kicked, so he goes back to Earthrealm to gather the allies. And in the comic, like in the comic, he's just like, he's at the Shaolin Temple training with Kai. and then like Fujin falls out of the sky and tells them, "Hey, we're under attack. Come with me. We're gonna go fight Shinnok." And that's it.
Yeah.
Johnny's got like no dialogue in the comic.
He has like one line about the reason he's with Sody and Jax is because he's making a movie about being in the army, so he's like doing research by hanging out with them.
Yeah.
I happen to think that the reason it's the way it is that they were all kind of soured on the Cage character at the time.
Yeah, Johnny got a lot
They-
of crap from
didn't-
3 to 4 to Deadly Alliance.
They just didn't really want to build anything concrete or worthwhile with him, I don't think.
I think it sort of felt like they as writers thought when they killed him off in Trilogy, they were sort of like they had completed an arc and they were satisfied with him having a beginning, a middle, and end to his story. So bringing him back again and again was disappointing to them. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
But like, so there's a couple other interesting things in the comic. One of them is, so we see Kitana making peace between the Centaurs and the Shokan.
Yeah.
And here's another kind of error, is that the peace talks start breaking down and they start fighting. So Goro jumps out of, like, he was hiding in the roof of the building, and the Centaurs respect him so much that him showing up is enough to get them to go back to the peace talks.
Yeah.
Which is, a little weird that the Centaurs give a shit about Goro. I guess, if you're trying to make him that important, I'm fine with it, but you would think that the bad blood between these two races is such that, like if you got a bunch of like racist Southerners and a bunch of black guys together, is there any black person on Earth who could get the racist Southerners to calm down?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's kind of where
I'm just gonna say game recognizes game.
I guess, sure. But the other thing is, like, Goro's bio in 4 is that, so he's been in hiding since 1, and like let people think he was dead because he was so ashamed that he lost the tournament he couldn't face his own people. And the only reason he comes back is because he hears that Liu Kang is around and he's looking for a rematch to get his honor back. And so that's his reason for coming out of hiding in the game. So him coming out of hiding before that in the comic doesn't really match up.
I squint, I close my eyes and go, okay, fine, it's both.
But this is kind of an interesting scene because it sets up Kung Lao's gold ending. Like, this is the first time before Gold comes out that we get to see like the Edenian pink and purple armor and the idea that Kitana is making friends between the Centaurs and the Shokan. Like, that's all first established in the comic before Gold gets to it. So that part of it is canon and of some value.
Yeah.
The other thing I like is that we actually get to see the scene of how Quan Chi sneaks the Netherrealmers into Edenia. And him, like, he's disguised as a refugee, and he gives, like, Sindel a gift, and it's like a crystal ball, and as she's gazing into it, it hypnotizes her.
Yeah.
And down goes Edenia. They just waltz right in.
And there's one other little detail is that when Sony and Jax and Johnny show up, they show off the OIA's device that makes portals in order to get to Edenia and fight Shinnok's forces. And it's the only mention anywhere in any of the lore at all that the portal device is nuclear powered. Oh. And that's I think Tobias seeding in the idea he was going to explore in Special Forces about the Black Dragon stole a nuke to build a portal machine.
Yeah.
Which didn't make it into the final game, but the idea that that's where Jax got that technology from. And it's just, I think it's interesting that nowhere else in the games do they actually mention that portal thing is nuclear.
Yeah. And, well, basically with MK, so, we have like this what happened? Like, the comic ends with the heroes like arriving at Edenia, and Quan Chi's like, "Welcome to a Mortal Kombat you've never seen before."
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the final shot of them like looking through the portal and seeing Quan Chi. The background behind him is like a drawing, like they traced over a shot taken straight from Annihilation, like the end of Annihilation where they're fighting on the like steps of this ruined, crumbled stone building. He just reused that.
Matt, I would say probably, yeah.
Is Special Forces still the worst MK game? Yeah.
No, it's MK1.
No, NetherKast just
Shut up.
I think NetherKast just did a ranking of all the MK games, and I think Special Forces was at the bottom.
Special Forces did get ranked worse than MK1.
I vehemently oppose this.
I can understand. I can understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's worth arguing over which two pieces of shit smell worse.
It's funny, actually. We say that, and I used to refer to Special Forces as the brown piece of shit that gave us a brown piece of shit.
Yeah.
Back in the days when I hated Tremor so much. So very, very much. But now I can look at them and say, hey, we got something worthwhile out of it.
It's M1K. Yeah, we'll call it.
Yeah, the logo does say M1K.
It's monkey.
I prefer to call it 12 because that's what it is. It's a direct sequel to 11.
Yeah, I can't call it MK.
Apparently, in the code, like data miners have found that the code in the game refers to the game as MK12.
Yeah. But we're talking about MK12 again, so let's get back to MK4.
Yeah, let's not
do that. Let's not ask any questions about that horrible piece of shit that I currently got for sale on Kijiji.
All right. Well,
I'll tell you what. If the Sonya demo had been the final game, even if it ended where the demo ends and there was no more levels, then it would be better than 12.
Well, wasn't Sonya's campaign going to end with her leading in going to the island or something?
Yeah, they were gonna branch off. Sonya's would end with her going to MK1, and Jax's levels would end with him going to MK2.
Yeah. But obviously it didn't quite pan out that way.
Yeah. Actually, the way the game was supposed to end is that when Jax goes to Outworld for MK2, he accidentally finds and fights Goro. Like he ends up finding his hiding place.
Shaolin monks would suggest Goro's not that good at keeping it hidden.
Yeah, like he could have at least found a cave or something instead of just hanging out in the open in a castle.
He's just sitting on a log in the wastelands. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, look, we love mythologies for its story, not for its gameplay.
Mythologies, I'm not like defending the gameplay, but I don't hate playing it. I just hate the difficulty. I actually don't mind the controls once you get used to them.
Yeah, it's just the game's not very forgiving.
The turnaround button is turgid and terrible.
It is. The turnaround button is the biggest problem. I'm just saying that once you get the hang of it, the difficulty is really the only thing wrong with that game. It's just, it's designed to sell the strategy guide.
Yeah.
Quite.
Anyway, so I guess we'll get into what's
die.
Yeah. We'll get into how did MK4 go down? I guess what happens? Do you think like Goro tried to fight Liu Kang again, or do you think that didn't happen?
Okay, well, like this is the funny thing. I think that Goro shows up later on. We know so little about MK4 after the comic. We know how it starts in terms of the comic. We know how it ends in terms of all those endings that happen. More endings happen than don't, honestly.
Quite a few of the endings are actually canon.
A lot of the 3D era is actually set up by quite a few of those endings.
Mortal Kombat 4,
how we get there.
Mortal Kombat 4 is the first game in the series where more than one ending happens. Because traditionally, the only arcade ending that counts is Liu Kang's, the person who wins.
Well,
I think that's
from the other ones happened.
Elements from multiple
backstory. If an ending has
multiple
backstory
endings
in it,
happen.
if an ending has backstory in it, that happens. Everything else does not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to believe that Smoke got his consciousness and soul back and helped Sub-Zero fight off Smoke and
Yeah. I mean, they never say one way or the other, but we do know that he gets like, quote unquote, deactivated and taken as a treasure by Shao Kahn's forces.
I just take the approach of
I have to imagine that the way that happened is him fighting alongside Sub-Zero, as opposed to like. I mean, I know the extermination squads were going after the Cybers just because they're from Earthrealm and there was no like alliance, unlike an MK9. But it makes more sense to me to have like, oh, Smoke and Sub-Zero had their thing and he got rescued and then he got taken down.
Yeah. So let's go.
My approach has just always been to like take in anything that doesn't conflict with the notion of Liu Kang winning the tournament or what have you.
Yeah.
Which is why I said Raiden
no
says he goes on a suicide mission, doesn't actually do it. You know, little details like that.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting one because we know from Deception that after Trilogy, Rain does never work for Shao Kahn again. Yeah. Like he's living in Edenia doing like his own thing, which is mostly like theft.
Yeah,
theft. You know, he's just become a criminal in Edenia and completely abandoned Outworld. So like he is not working for Shao Kahn. So theoretically, Kitana convinced him to stop working for Shao Kahn. He just didn't do the rest of it, where he tries to fight Shao Kahn.
Yeah. Rain is just Well,
so the thing is, like, if you're gonna go into what does and doesn't happen in 4, 4 is structurally made the same as like 2 and 3. You know,
actually,
all you have are...
Was Jarek in the comic? I don't remember.
Jarek is in the comic. Sony is chasing him the first time we see them.
Okay.
The interesting thing about MK4 is even though structurally it's basically exactly the same as 3, and you know, you have bios and endings, and that's all the story you get. And even though there are less characters, so you would think it would be an easier story to tell, the problem is that because the endings are now animated cutscenes, they can cover less information than text can. So you sort of get like one scene of immediately what a character is doing at the end, and you don't get all the follow-up of, you know, like, for example, after Shao Kahn was defeated, Cabal became a vigilante and gave, you know,
you get
something
like
to fear or whatever.
5 minutes of Scorpion sending Quan Chi back to hell, and that's the thing that happened.
There's no epilogue for any of the characters. So it's way less information overall, and that's kind of the problem. The other thing is that Deadly Alliance was not super concerned with updating people on how 4 ended.
No, it was very strange.
Yeah, usually the way you learn what happened in a game is the next game tells you. But Deadly Alliance was way more interested in how 3 ended than in how 4 ended. Like, we get all this stuff like, oh, the Kano's working for Shao Kahn because this happened in 3, and this is how Shiva and Motaro died, and, you know, Cyrax, here's how he got from 3 to now, and all these characters, this is what they were doing in 3, and this is what they're doing now. A lot of 4 was skipped over. The only parts of 4 that Deadly Alliance seemed to care about were Scorpion and Quan Chi.
Yeah.
We would sort of be able to piece things together from more information given in Deception and Armageddon.
Yeah.
But we've still never really gotten a clear picture of how Shinnok was defeated.
Well, I do think it's... Is it mentioned that Melina lets Kitana out of her cell or something?
Yes, that's it. So let me start at the beginning. So Edenia is actually, let me go back a little further. So Mythologies establishes that Shinnok cannot leave the Netherrealm without the amulet. The Elder Gods have like barriered him in. He would not be able to walk through a portal.
Yeah.
So when MK4 starts with Quan Quan Chi was able to sneak Shinnok into Edenia by pretending to be refugees and Sindel inviting them, that still doesn't get around, like, that doesn't explain how he bypassed the barrier.
Yeah.
So what you have to imagine is, okay, well, Quan Chi does have the amulet. But wouldn't Shinnok be curious about that?
Yeah.
So the thing that the game kind of doesn't tell us, and there's an arcade screen, like a screenshot in the demo mode of Shinnok and Quan Chi like standing in front of an evil red sky, and Shinnok is holding a staff that has the amulet on top of it, and they've never explained that. So the only thing I can theorize is that Quan must have somehow done this whole operation of like, hey, I'm going to send some guys into the Temple of Elements and we're going to get the amulet, the one that's actually a fake. So they're kind of wasting their time, but they do it anyway. So they steal the fake amulet again and give it to Shinnok again. And the game skips over that completely.
Yeah.
And I just find that weird.
Yeah. And Scorpion is Quan Chi, I guess, told him, oh, Kuai Yang helped kill your family, and that's why he is after Sub-Zero again. But that's what he's really doing.
Yeah, well, I'll get around to that, but... So they presumably re-steal the fake amulet so that Shinnok won't ask questions.
Yeah. Then
they sneak into Edenia by posing as refugees from another world. They get Sindel to invite them in. They have Tanya talk Sindel into letting them in, because Tanya is secretly on their side. Like, Quan Chi at some point has approached this woman her father is a member of the royal court. He's like the ambassador to New Realms.
Yeah.
And the whole bit there is that we don't really know why Tanya turns against Edenia.
Yeah.
But the implication seems to be that she just hates Kitana for some reason.
Well,
like
yeah.
in her bio, like the game's website had, I wouldn't call them expanded versions of the bios, but just bios that also listed characters who are their allies and characters who are their enemies. I think it might have had some like height and weight data, but I don't remember for sure. That might not be there. But the main thing is that, like, under allies and enemies, Tanya's listed Kitana as an enemy, which is kind of an obvious thing to say if she's gone against Edenia. But at the time, Kitana wasn't in the game yet. You know, Gold hadn't come out yet. So it's like, why are they mentioning a character who's not even in the game? What's this about? And, you know, you're grasping at straws for any kind of motivation for Tanya because she has none. And there is a... So this is weird. Brazil got an MK4 comic that was like 4 issues long, and I think might have been licensed, but it's only in Brazil, which is super weird. But in that comic, they present Tanya's motivation as she's working with Shinnok basically as a blackmail situation. Like, she thinks if she cooperates with him, he will spare Edenia and do less damage.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, based on her characterization in other games, Tanya seems like the kind of person, like, we know she never worked for Shao Kahn. She grew up in the Edenian Resistance.
Yeah.
And so if her dad is a member of the royal court now that Edenia is free, he must have been high up in the Resistance. So my theory is maybe Tanya thought, one day when we defeat Shao Kahn and we free Edenia, I'll be in line for the throne because my dad is the head of the Resistance.
Yeah.
And then Sindel and Kitana, you know, turned against Khan and they took over, and she's like, that throne should be mine. Fuck those two.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I've always gotten the sense that Tanya wants to build kind of a stronger Edenia, that she's resentful of Shao Kahn's conquest. She's an Edenian patriot. But
yeah, I mean,
also kind of an Edenian nationalist and a scary person.
there is more of a, like, loyal to the realm but militant about it in, like, the MKX version. So I could see you backporting that.
I was really pleased with without X's depiction of her actually turned out.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But, like, you could definitely, like, take some of that and put it into the old timeline and say that her beef with the royal family is that Edenia is too peaceful and that makes them vulnerable. And if I was in charge, would have a military and Shao Kahn would never happen again, something like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, so Quan Chi gets Tanya on his side, and so there's more interesting stuff about Tanya that's sort of been added in later games. MKX establishes that she is quote unquote a pyromancer, which I find interesting because Edenians worship Argus and his wife Delia, and Delia is a fire-based sorceress. So maybe maybe studying fire magic makes you like a priestess, like a religious person in Edenian culture. Maybe that's what Tanya was studying for before she turned bad, and Quan Chi is like, "Hey, I'm going to teach you some black magic," and that's why her fire moves are purple now. I don't know. It's a way you could go with it, but it's like the gist I'm getting at is that Tanya seems to be a sorcerer's apprentice like that's her relationship to Quan Chi, is that she's learning evil magic from him. And the games don't super elaborate on this, except the mobile game Onslaught, which goes way into it and gives her like necromancy and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's an interesting angle you could add to it, is all I'm saying. But it seems like, so yeah, Tanya aligns with the in MK4, they call the Netherrealmers the Army of Darkness, which I enjoy because it's the name of one of the Evil Dead movies. But yeah, so Shinnok's Army of Darkness invades Edenia, throws Sindel and Katana in the dungeon. And as Trilogy established, Melina, because she died in MK2, now works for Shinnok. And is even working for Shinnok in Trilogy when she's, brought back to life and given back to Shao Kahn. She's still secretly working for Shinnok. So she's there, and she is put in charge of guarding Katana. But Melina really wants revenge for that time in MK2 that Katana killed her. So she deliberately lets Katana escape, and that leads to Katana and Melina fighting each other in gold. Yeah. And we know that all happened because when Melina comes back in Deception, she's at the bottom of a dungeon pit that Katana dropped her into, which is their gold endings. So the Katana version of that ending, where Melina doesn't win, canonically happened. So that's what you were asking about with Melina and Katana. That's how that all strings together.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so they take over Edenia, and then they use Edenia as a staging area to attack the heavens and fight the gods, because Shinnok's whole thing is he wants to kill the other elder gods. And some interesting bits of lore I guess I should elaborate on here. There's two things. The first is that this is before it was ever established that the elder gods don't live in heaven. They live in the void, the empty space between realms.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of heaven? We've never really seen heaven in the games. I think the place in 9/11 where Raiden goes to consult with the elder gods, like that Roman pantheon platform in outer space where they're all sitting on thrones as blue holograms. I think that's supposed to be heaven.
Or at least he's talking to them at heaven. Or he's like...
Yeah, like Raiden is in heaven, and they are projecting from the void, and that's why they look like holograms.
I think that was an update of the MK4 Elder God stage.
Yeah, there is a stage in 4. It's like it's an indoor area, and they're just faces on the walls. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's a modern day kind of update of that.
Yeah.
The way MK4 portrayed that stage, it did seem to be kind of like chamber of communication with the Elder Gods.
Yeah, it's like...
But it seems to be very localized in Earthrealm or in Raiden's temple or something like that.
Fujin's ending takes place in that room, and it's like, it's Raiden talking to the Elder Gods and telling them, if you're going to promote me to an Elder God, I want Fujin to take my place as Protector of Earthrealm. So yeah, it is, we do see it as a place where the gods communicate with the Elders. And my guess would be that it's supposed to be in heaven, and that the main way that heaven is used by the gods is it's just a place to meet, because it's sort of easier to go there than to like float around in the empty ass void, which is just outer space looking. Like there's nowhere to stand.
I mean, it's also probably a resting place for its souls and whatnot.
Yes, it's also where good people go when they die.
Yes.
Which,
just to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, Johnny Cage is there at the start of the game.
Well, theoretically, I've say the same works with heaven. How you have to be good to be able to be there.
Yes, they do. They actually they say that in Scorpion's Ending and Deadly Alliance. So the palace in Deadly Alliance that Quan and Shang hang out in has this Solnado coming out of it, right?
Yeah.
The story is that Quan made that Solnado by just opening a portal to heaven, so that like because heaven is nothing but it's full of souls, all the souls come shooting out, and then Shang can feed whenever he wants, and it's to help Shang get stronger.
Yeah.
But Draman and Moloch try to throw Scorpion into the Solnado to kill him, and the idea is that the Solnado will carry him up to heaven. And because his body is spawned in hell, he'll be destroyed. But Scorpion kind of slips out before it carries him to heaven, and he ends up in the void, and that's how he meets the Elder Gods and becomes their champion in Deception.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, though.
Yeah, the point is that yes, heaven would kick out or destroy anyone who's not good enough, the same way that hell will kick out anyone who's not bad enough.
Yeah.
At least in the old timeline, that's how it worked. None of these rules have been mentioned in the NRS games. They completely threw them out.
Well, yeah.
I was thinking about this, actually.
They have the army going to NetherRealm to fight when it's like, are we sure these guys can exist in the NetherRealm? There used to be specific rules.
Well, it's a plot point that, like, in Deception, Nightwolf can't go to the NetherRealm because he's too good. So he has to do this ritual that will absorb sins from other people first.
Yeah.
And then in 9, Nightwolf just goes to hell when he dies.
Yeah, they completely ignored that rule.
Yeah.
It's a magnificent thing how much the 3D era fucked with the lore.
Yeah. You mean the NRS era?
But
You said 3D.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I kind of mean both. But
well, that's if we're going to talk about weird 3D era lore. The other thing I wanted to point out, because it's specifically relevant to 4. So 4 is the last John Tobias game. John Tobias's intention is that at the end of 3, when Shao Kahn is defeated, Kahn is supposed to be dead. Sindel and Kitana take the Outworld throne, and they just start calling Outworld Edenia. They don't actually unmerge the realms. They just rule Outworld and call it Edenia. And that's why they give a crap about making peace between the Centaurs and the Shokans. That's why Reptile is there, so they can arrest him and try him for murders. That's why whenever you see Edenia in, the graphically, like in the endings, it has weird sky colors, and it still looks kind of gothic horror-ish. Because it's not really Edenia, it's still Outworld. They're just calling it Edenia. Now, Deadly Alliance would then retcon that and say, actually, when Khan was defeated, he wasn't killed. Everybody just thinks he's dead, but he's lying low in Outworld. And they did unmerge Edenia from Outworld. And that's what Sindel and Kitana are ruling.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of 4, you're supposed to think Outworld and Edenia are the same place, which is why Outworld doesn't really appear in the story. Like, if you were telling that story today after the Deadly Alliance retcon, the question would be raised, why doesn't Shinnok also attack Outworld if he's attacking Edenia and Earthrealm and Heaven? Why does he leave that one alone?
Yeah. Well, Tobias said something along the lines of that in his mind, after MK3, Shao Kahn bet everything and Outworld didn't exist as it was anymore. He lost it all.
Yeah, he died. He lost his kingdom, and Sindel and Kitana took it over.
And he came back as Reiko.
Sort of. It's really unclear what Reiko's relationship to Shao Kahn actually is supposed to be. So,
well, the thing is, Reiko, we don't really know much about him in this game because he's just very enigmatic.
I'll give you a fucking $1 right now if you can tell me what Reiko does in MK4. Right now. Tell me.
He's the general. He's in charge of Shinnok's army, so he leads the troops.
Yeah, but
you could have said he walked through a portal. Odds are you walked through a portal at some point.
Really
yes, he did walk through a portal at some point. At some point, he definitely walked through a portal.
He doesn't really have anything that characterizes him. He's just this mysterious guy, really.
Well, yeah, so the thing about Reiko is, and again, I want to reiterate, Shao Kahn is supposed to be dead. According the writer of MK4 intends for Shao Kahn to be dead. Deadly Alliance had a different writer. It said Shao Kahn's not dead. But while we're talking about 4, just keep in your head, Shao Kahn is supposed to be dead. And there are things in the game to reinforce this, both like the tomb stage and the church stage. Like in Gold, they brought back the MK3 temple, but they added a sarcophagus to it. And if you look real close at that sarcophagus, you can tell that it has the likeness of Shao Kahn carved on the lid.
Yeah.
So that's literally where he's supposed to be buried. Maybe that coffin is empty because Shao Kahn like blew up at the end of 3. I'd like to think that, if you have green lasers shooting out every which way of your body and you explode, there's nothing left to bury. But
the coffin might be ornamental.
Yes. But the point is, there is one. You're supposed to believe Shao Kahn is dead. Now, here's the thing about Reiko. When we're introduced to Reiko, all we know is that he is the general of the Brotherhood of the Shadow. He is the top guy in Shinnok's army. He has glowing blue eyes, just like Noob Saibot. He has some of Noob Saibot's moves. So, in theory, because he's the general of Hell, and he looks kind of like Noob, he's probably a dead guy. We don't know what he was before he died, but right now he's probably undead. Now, Reiko's bio says that it's really confusingly worded, but what it's saying is that during the fighting in heaven, like when they start attacking at the beginning of MK4, Reiko dies. And then he mysteriously comes back and keeps fighting. What's up with that? Now, to read that today with the retcons that we have and all that of, Shao Kahn still being alive and whatnot, the best explanation I could give you is that the bio is just demonstrating the danger of Shinnok's army, that as long as the portals to the Netherrealm are open, his soldiers can respawn at will, and there's no way to beat them unless you beat him and close the portals.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But what they seem to have intended at the time is to say, Reiko died. Why is Reiko still here? And then you get to his home version ending where he puts on Shao Kahn's helmet, and there's like a Game Boy ending with text that kind of implies the reason he's putting on the helmet is because he is Shao Kahn.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like the intention is that when Reiko died, Shao Kahn's ghost down in hell disguised itself as Reiko and took his place.
Yeah.
Like, and just that's how Shao Kahn snuck out of hell, is that by pretending to be Reiko. That's what it seems like, but all of this is super unclear.
It goes without saying, I know a lot of us didn't read Reiko's MK4 bio like that. I always read Reiko's bio as, because the phrasing is, once a general in Shinnok's armies, he led the forces of darkness into the battle against the Elder Gods.
Yeah, here's the problem.
And a lot of people... Hang on.
Yeah, I'm letting you. Go ahead.
Stop doing that. The phrasing would seem to imply that he was there... That refers to Reiko's... Sorry. That refers to Shinnok's original battle against the Elder Gods.
See, I have seen, like...
which would make him impossibly old, very, very old.
The thing is, a lot of people interpret it that way, but there was no battle with the Elder Gods in ancient times.
They're talking about Raiden.
Yes, that's the problem. That never happened. The only battle with the Elder Gods is the one in the present at the beginning of the game. Shinnok only fought Raiden on Earth in ancient times.
Just thought that was worth mentioning.
Right.
The phrasing is bizarre.
Yes, it is poorly worded. But I believe the intention is just they worded it funny to create a mystery. Reiko's supposed to be dead, which is a weird thing to point out because he's already undead. Like, everybody in Shinnok's army is undead, so who cares? But yeah, people saw Reiko die, and now they're asking, why is Reiko back? And it seems like the answer is because that's not Reiko, it's Shao Kahn in disguise.
Yeah.
Which, again, all of this was negated in future games. They just said Shao Kahn never died, and Reiko has no connection to him.
That's the problem with Reiko. He's too interesting of an idea to leave as
yeah.
a vehicle for Shao Kahn to use to come back.
If I was trying to fix it, here's what I would do. At the end of MK3, I would have Shao Kahn indeed die. In MK4, Reiko would be Reiko. He'd be his own person. At the end of the game, when Shinnok is going to be defeated, Reiko would be like, oh, I'm on the losing side. I'm going to get out of here. I'm not going to let them send me back to hell. And he'd escape into a portal to Outworld. He would walk through a portal. And he'd go to Outworld, and he'd be like, well, Shao Kahn's not around anymore. And here's his throne, and here's his helmet. I guess this is mine now. And he'd put on the helmet, and he'd be possessed by the ghost of Shao Kahn. Because the ghost is in the helmet for some reason. You know, he bound himself to it to stop himself from going to the afterlife. Whatever. And then the beginning of Deadly Alliance, when Quan Chi and Shang Tsung kill Shao Kahn, they're actually killing Reiko.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is... So something that's always kind of disappointed me is I really like Havoc's Deception ending, where he wants to steal Onaga's heart and eat it to gain Onaga's power to bring back the dead. And the reason he wants that power is he wants to bring Shao Kahn back because Outworld was more chaotic and interesting with Shao Kahn in charge. So I'd have him go through all of that and bring back the body, and the body turns out to be he brings back both Reiko and Shao Kahn. And that would be why they're both in Armageddon. That would be the explanation for how they come back in that game. And that's what I would do.
Yeah. Well,
I've always said that if I was ever actually doing it for my version of MK4, I would stick to the idea of like Reiko of Shao Kahn impersonating Reiko, but I would have had them meet in hell and have this be a whole thing that they hashed out together. Because maybe Reiko doesn't really believe that Shinnok's got what it takes anymore. Maybe he wants to be on a winning side.
Right. You could do it that way. That would be fine as well. I just think mine sort of... I don't know. It lets me do some goofy shit with the putting on of the helmet and all of that.
Yeah. But...
I really like the idea of, like... What if the... Like, they did... Like, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung did kill Khan, but technically it was Reiko. I just think that would be amusing. But, like, the other thing about Reiko is that, so... After 4 came out, now in 4, the only thing we know about him in 4 is that he works for Shinnok, and we have no idea about his backstory or why he cares about Khan's helmet. We don't have any of that. He works for Shinnok. That's all we know. He has Shinnok's logo on his back. So after that game came out, Reiko appears in the TV show Conquest, where instead of working for Shinnok, he's working for Shao Kahn. And they took that from that show and put it into the games, because the next time we actually see Reiko in a game, in Deception, he's working for Shao Kahn.
All this trivia, all these details.
Yeah.
We still can't tell you what he actually does in MK4.
Well, we don't know what anyone does in MK4 for the most part.
We don't.
I'm going to throw out a detail. I'm going to throw out a detail right now. you fight Shinnok in hell, right? This is established. Ergo, Raiden can't be present down there. If he is, it's unwitting, and he's in terrible, terrible pain.
Well, actually, that's the weird thing, is that we don't actually know where they fight.
I think when you defeat Shinnok, he gets teleported back to hell.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing I want to say is that
it's
almost none of the stages have a story. Like the Living Forest came back, and we know where that is, and the Goro's Lair came back, which doesn't make sense because there's no reason in the story for anybody to go to Shang's Island.
And that's where Scorpion beats Sub-Zero for some reason.
Yeah.
He has
and then
multiple layers.
There's a stage called the Firewell, which is where the final boss fight takes place, and we don't even know where it is. Like Armageddon establishes it as a factory in the Netherrealm, and but we didn't have anything in 4.
I mean, it was fire and a bunch of severed heads on the wall.
Now here's
I remember looking at that in MK, and I remember looking at that in 1997, going, "Yeah, that's hell.
It's probably hell.
This is what hell could look like.
It's probably hell." And Armageddon says it's hell. So I'm fine with it being hell. But here's the other thing. The Firewell is not actually where Shinnok is defeated.
Yeah.
If you follow what little hints and bits of story we have, because we talked about Deadly Alliance not saying how 4 ended. So there's a weird thing. Deadly Alliance has in its crypt a couple of 4 endings. It has Scorpion's ending. It has Baraka's ending from Gold, and it has Tanya's ending. And it's like, those are the only 3 that are in there. And why is it those 3? Because Baraka's ending is not canon. In Baraka's ending, Quan Chi takes over the universe and kills Baraka. Scorpion's ending, though, is one of the endings that's canon. Tanya's ending, I don't know, it's just there too. Like, maybe they thought it was funny. The dialogue is really cheesy in that one in particular.
There's a bunch of fire going on. It's the moment where Tanya's outed as a traitor.
Yeah. But now here's the thing. In like later interviews, particularly one of the like Deception and Armageddon, the collector's edition releases came with like bonus feature discs, which had these videos on them. These like they were called trading card videos because they would start with an image of a trading card, and there was one for each character. In one of them, I think it might have been Shinnok's, John Vogel tries to explain how 4 ended, but he doesn't do a great job of it. He just kind of says the reason Shinnok lost MK4 is because Quan Chi had the real amulet, and so Shinnok didn't have the power he thought he had and got beaten unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's like Tanya's ending seems to be basically canon, because we know that Tanya did reveal herself as a traitor, except it didn't work out for her.
Who doesn't get blown up, basically.
Yeah, she gets caught, and she gets banished from Edenia. And we know from Liu Kang's tomb in Deception that Liu Kang has won 4 games. Like, he has 4 victory medals, which means he won the MK tournament. He won the MK2 tournament. He beat Shao Kahn in MK3, and he's the one who beat Shinnok in 4.
Although I would like to imagine...
Disappointing, because he doesn't need it. He's already done enough.
Well,
okay, but none of this tells me why that's not the firewall that Shinnok
I would like to imagine that...
Let me get there.
Liu Kang beat Shinnok together or something. That's my idea.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to... I would like to think Kai was there, because otherwise, why does Raiden give Kai his staff? Like, what did Kai do to deserve anything? But that's not important. The important thing is... So what all of the evidence seems to suggest is that what happens in MK4 is that, the heroes go to Edenia to free it from Shinnok. Liu Kang's not even trying to fight Shinnok. His only priority is to get to the dungeon and free Kitana. And so his and Tanya's story in 4 is that Tanya is pretending to still be on the good guys, like she's acting as a mole. She's not... letting them know that she let Shinnok in and whatnot. She's like, I will lead you to the dungeon. I know where Katana is. So Lou and Tanya go into the Edenian dungeons, and Tanya's ending happens, which is Tanya leads Lou into the wrong room, and waiting in that room for him in the ending is Shinnok and Quan Chi, and Shinnok blows Lou up with a single fireball because the amulet is so powerful. Now, what actually seems to have happened is because Scorpion has already, his ending has happened, and Quan Chi isn't there, meaning the real amulet isn't there. So Tanya leads Lou into a trap, and Lou does fight Shinnok, and Shinnok loses because he can't blow him up with a single fireball.
Yeah.
So so Shinnok's actual defeat seems to have happened in the Edenian dungeons.
It's a little anticlimactic.
Yes, it's not a great ending.
That works. I think that there's nothing that says that Shinnok couldn't have been chased back to hell, and the actual end of the arcade mode in MK4 takes place in the firewell.
Right. Well, if I was going,
the version you're presenting to me sucks. I'm sorry.
It does suck. It does suck. I don't disagree. It's not a good ending. It's just the one that they seem to want us to believe is actually what happened. If it were me,
they thought this through.
If it were me, I would have Shinnok be defeated but get away, and then a better defeat happens, like Raiden beats him in the Netherrealm or something. Somebody who deserves it.
I mean, Raiden can't go to the Netherrealm, but...
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, maybe he could. He would just be weaker there. But Shinnok is super weak without Quan Chi around anyway.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you're saying, like, his defeat should happen in the Firewell, I don't disagree. I'm just saying the one that we're given seems to be that Liu Kang beats him in the Edenian dungeon. And as Greg was pointing out earlier, the animation that plays when you beat Shinnok, when you beat Shinnok, is that a portal opens up under his feet. Like, his face explodes, and he falls down a portal that makes a toilet flushing noise.
Yes.
Yeah. And at the bottom of this portal, there's fire. So it seems like this is a portal to the Netherrealm. He's being re-banished back into the Netherrealm from wherever he actually currently is.
Well, my viewpoint on that is that, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves here again, but, I wrote a bunch of Mortal Kombat Armageddon stuff, and my version of events is always that when Shinnok gets his ass handed to him at the end of 4, it isn't just that he goes back down to hell. It's that, I thought they always have been there. Like, the whole face exploding and turning into, like, triangle polygons and whatnot, and the fire and the falling. It's him being cast down further into hell by the Elder Gods. Because, I don't know, Liu Kang challenged him to Mortal Kombat and formally accepted that. That's why he's got, like, 4 amulets, and so he loses and he pays the ultimate price, and the Elder Gods just shove him down as far as they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, again, Deadly Alliance has, like, 0 mention of Shinnok anywhere in it. And then Deception has, like, Noob Saibot's bio is like, Shinnok is gone, Quan Chi is gone, Shao Kahn is gone, now the path is clear for me to take over the Netherrealm. And it's like, Shinnok comes right back in Armageddon. He wasn't gone. So where's he been?
Everyone thinks he's gone.
If he was in fact, like, banished to a deeper, darker hole in the Netherrealm and nobody knew he was down there, and then by the time he claws himself back up, it's after Deception, that would make some sense.
That's the way I've always seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go ahead and suggest that the dev team, because of how underwritten MK4 is, because of what we're discussing right now, I think they forgot you fought him in the Firewall, man.
It feels like they wanted to not use Shinnok anymore after 4. Like, the reason he's not mentioned in DA and Deception is because they wanted him to be dead
forgotten,
or
because no one liked him.
Some kind of permanent defeat. And then they just changed their minds when they got to Armageddon. Like, well, we're bringing everybody back. That includes Shinnok. Let's at least put some effort into making him a little bit. Yeah, and I would say they succeeded. Like, Shinnok is one of my favorite parts of Armageddon. Like, I think they did a really good job with him in that game.
Okay.
So it is kind of a shame that they had him like mysteriously absent in the previous 2 games. And there's really no explanation for that.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, with Scorpion, I guess you'll have to do some wiggle room and say.
So this is not actually as complicated as people think it is. People get upset because Scorpion had explicitly made peace with Kuai Liang. Like, he was over it. You know, I killed your brother, you're not him, there's no beef between you and me. In fact, I'm going to help you out and protect you to make up for killing your brother. In MK2 and 3. So we get to 4, and the devs are just like, you know what? It's been a while. People really, when they think of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, they think of them as enemies. Like, it's a classic rivalry. The movie just came out. Everybody thinks Scorpion, Sub-Zero. They want to see Scorpion and Sub-Zero fight. It's always Scorpion versus Sub-Zero. Let's just do it again. So they came up with kind of a dumb justification for it of like, why would Scorpion, after having already, made peace with Kuai Liang, why would he go after him now? And they just say, Quan Chi told him Kuai Liang was there, helped kill his family and clan. And it just never came up before. It just never came up before. But he was there too. So
he bought it.
You need your revenge. You still don't have your revenge. You got to get him too. And Scorpion just fell for it.
Which is still kind of dumb.
It is a little dumb, but you have to sort of put yourself in the mindset of like, what was Scorpion's story about back then? When people sort of think of it now through the lens of the NRS games, they really only think that he cares about avenging his family and clan. But there was a third thing in the Tobias era, which was like, avenge myself, because the family and clan being dead wasn't even introduced until Mythologies. It was mostly avenging himself. And then it was, okay, I got my revenge. I'm in hell. Hell sucks. I don't want to be in hell. How do I get out of hell? And it was, he was trying redemption. That was why he was protecting Kuai Liang, was like, maybe if I make up for my sins, my soul will be able to get out of here and not come back anymore when I die. So in MK3, we see him, like UMK3, we see him like trying a new thing, which is like Shao Kahn is offering, fight for me, and you will never have to go back to hell again. I'll keep you here. And he tried that. But then he was like, "Oh, but my vow to protect Sub-Zero. I gotta go with Sub-Zero." So that didn't last. So in MK4, it's not just that Quan Chi has told him, Sub-Zero, Kuai Liang is actually your enemy too. You should be mad at him as well. It was also that Quan and Shinnok were making the offer of, if you help us conquer the realms, you'll be free. You won't have to go to hell anymore.
But he really accepts because he really wants to get at Kuai Yang. He wants to get.
Yeah, it was more that than the other thing, but it's also the other thing does matter. So,
life in exchange for his services as a warrior against the elders.
Yes. And there's sort of a key element of this that is also not talked about anymore, is like, Scorpion believed the reason he went to hell when he died is an honor thing. Like, he was following like the rules of Japanese religion. Like, he died not a proper warrior's death. He was on his knees and begging when Bi-Han ripped his spine out. So he had to like regain his honor to not be, worthy of the Nether Realm anymore, to rise above. And that's really what the revenge was about. The idea is that avenging himself would restore his honor. And then they added the family and clan stuff in, and that made it more of a personal, like, I'm just mad because my family's dead, man.
More generally relatable.
Yeah, more relatable, as opposed to the Japanese honor stuff.
Yeah.
But all these elements do sort of play into it to if you put yourself in that headspace, it makes more sense for Hanzo to have believed Quan Chi and still be going along with Quan Chi in MK4. Like, why was he falling for these obvious lies and stuff like that? Why was he so quick to go against, like, he'd made a vow to protect this guy and now he's trying to kill him? That's hypocritical or whatever. And I think he felt that he had fulfilled the vow when he fought alongside him in UMK3. I kind of feel like he's like, I did my promise, and that's now we're even. But yeah, there's a lot more dimension to it than just the surface read people have of like, oh, we're doing this again. Like, why is he so stupid to go after Sub-Zero after he made friends with Sub-Zero?
Yeah. But of course he finds out Quan Chi's the real killer, and that's
because Quan just comes out and says it.
Yeah, Quan Chi's like, I don't need you anymore. I'm going to send you back to hell.
Yeah.
I have a better assassin now. He wears black.
The only reason I made you a Spectre, the only reason I brought you back to life is because the powers of a Spectre are perfect for beating Cryomancers. And now that you've beaten all the Cryomancers I need you to beat, I'm done with you. I'm throwing you out.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a fine, I don't really have a problem villain monologue-wise with a guy gloating going, haha, it was me all along, and now I'm throwing you in the trash, and then he gets got before he can pull it off. I'm fine with that. I just think it would be more interesting if instead of it happening that way, it was like Noob Saibot was like, it was Quan Chi. It was you should kill Quan Chi. And then he's like benefiting too. He's like, haha, I turned them against each other. Now I'm gonna take over the Netherrealm. That would be funny to me.
Yeah. But I guess we'll talk about the endings because we don't know how much went down, but we do know
because we've been talking for 2 straight hours and we still haven't managed to establish a single thing that happened during Mortal Kombat 4.
Look,
because
we know. Look,
I'm not done talking. There is absolutely things. There is absolute. Okay, look. At some point, they have to have some sort of general offensive against Shinnok.
Yes,
we have literally spent 2 hours talking about like the nuances and details and the what-haves and the could-have-beens and the might-have and the maybes. We still don't fucking know what happened, how they get from point B to C. There's just nothing, okay?
So
tell me what Kai does. Tell me what Reiko does.
Let me.
There's nothing there.
Here's what we know. The Netherrealm takes over Edenia. The Netherrealm attacks Heaven. In Heaven, they manage to kill the Earthrealm gods of Earth, Water, and Fire. Johnny Cage joins the gods fighting them. And then all of the heroes get involved. But when the heroes are involved, it's in Edenia. So it seems like Shinnok's forces were pushed back out of Heaven. So there was definitely a bunch of fighting in Heaven, and it seems like the Shinnok's forces lost and retreated back to Edenia. And then the final battles are the heroes taking back Edenia. That's what seems to happen. Now, there's a weird thing of like, you want the final battle to be in Firewell, which is in Netherrealm. There's Sub-Zero's story says that he's going to go into the Netherrealm. Like he's following in the footsteps of his brother in order to like infiltrate Shinnok's fortress because that's how his brother defeated him. But if Shinnok's forces aren't there, then what's the point? And why does Scorpion's ending happen at Goro's lair? Now here's the thing. The other
caves look alike.
Scorpion's ending is nearly identical to Sub-Zero's ending, except in Sub-Zero's ending, Quan Chi gets blown up and dies. And that's not the version that happens.
Yeah.
And that ending happens in the Firewell. So that if you just moved the setting, like if Scorpion's ending happens where Sub-Zero's ending happens, then it happens in the Netherrealm and it makes more sense.
I never really gave much thought at all to the fact that Scorpion's ending is in Goro's lair. I think it was supposed to be just a generic cave somewhere that we were seeing as representation.
Sure, I'm just saying the Firewell also looks like a cave. Why didn't they use that?
It's skulls everywhere. It's a very, very NetherRealm branded place.
Well, the fight should be in the NetherRealm. That's where Sub-Zero is supposed to be.
You know what? Here's a solution for your final battle in Edenia versus final battle in NetherRealm problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a clone. I know how you love clones. It's a clone up in Edenia. He did it again.
I don't love clones, by the way. I don't know where you're getting that. Just because I said it would be funny if MK2 ended with a statue so that you could still get the
want
freaking
Shao Kahn to be a
Stone.
fucking Doom bot.
Yes! But that doesn't mean I want Shinnok to do it all the time, too. It's one time, one thing.
I feel like if there was going to be one person that does it, it's like the devil, the trickster, the Satan. I feel like it works more for him.
If it was a copy, then Liu Kang's win doesn't count, and he shouldn't have that medal in his grave.
Could have come down after him. Could have fought him twice. I don't know.
I think that should be where Liu Kang's portion of the story ends. He, Tanya turned on him and it didn't work out. Katana got free of the dungeon anyway. That was all Liu cared about. He just wanted to save his girlfriend. For once, someone else should be actually saving the realms. And that's like... I mean,
who else could it be, though?
Kai was introduced specifically to be the next generation of Liu Kang. Like, the whole point of the narrative was Liu is stepping back into a mentor role. Here's his student. And also, Fujin is replacing Raiden in this game. Like, we're handing off torches. Maybe actually hand them off.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
And we haven't talked about how Kung Lao gets involved, have we?
Kung Lao barely gets involved. Kung Lao only shows up after everything's over to throw his hat at Goro. He didn't actually
letting everyone
do
think he's dead. He's stuck in Edenia or
Goro pretended to be dead and only came out to fight Liu Kang. Kung Lao pretended to be dead and only came out to fight Goro.
This is not the best written game.
Yeah. I kind of enjoy the parallels. I like that Goro and Kung Lao are basically the same fucking guy.
They could have things to bond over, honestly.
Yes. This explains why it was a ceremonial strike. Now I've avenged my ancestor. We can shake hands and make peace.
Well, I would have loved to have seen Liu Kang's reaction. Hey, I thought you were dead.
By the way, I would really like that scar across Goro's chest to have been in the 3D era. Like that and Baraka's staples. The fact that those don't recur in the later games and are just forgotten really kind of bothers me.
Baraka's staples, yes. I can kind of see why they didn't do it with Goro. There's another sub-boss out there who's got a large scar on his chest.
Yeah, but I'm okay with Goro and Sagat both having a chest scar. It doesn't need to be weird.
Just a bit too obvious. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think what the scar means is completely different.
And we haven't talked about Cyrax and Sector. They're in gold, but they don't really get.
Okay, so Cyrax and Sector. Cyrax's bio and Sector's, you kind of have to close your eyes and magic them away, because Deadly Alliance kind of specifies that it's the special forces who find him.
Yeah.
And then the MK4 version of things, the Lin Kuei find him. Sector gives him the stink eye because he thinks that there's something wrong with his program. He's right. And he just sort of follows him, like, while he goes
they just
Sub-Zero or whatever.
So, well, here's something, is that Sub-Zero's bio says the Lin Kuei is gone. Like, after the Cyber Initiative failed, there is no more clan. It completely fell apart. Nobody's left.
Yeah.
And then here comes Sector and Cyrax's bios going, actually, no, there's still a Lin Kuei. They got the Cyber Ninjas back, and they're sending them out on another mission. Stupid.
Yeah.
So when Deadly Alliance retcons it and goes, no, Sector and Cyrax's MK4 bios aren't even canon. Like, Cyrax's ending is canon, but the bios are not. I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that.
I often cite, like, the MK4 versus Deadly Alliance Cyrax dichotomy as the first real retcon in MK's history.
Yeah, I mean
It's
that
the
and
big one,
Outworld and Adania being two separate things.
I suppose.
Well,
Capcom being
my
one.
favorite ending in all of that is probably Sector's ending. The way he just walks in and kills Jack, Sonya, and Cyrax without saying a
Well,
word.
that's an interesting thing about MK4 endings is many of them reuse assets and are basically the same ending, but with a different ending. That's a weird way to word it, but it's the same cutscene, and then the last bit of it is different. Sector and Cyrax is an example of that.
Katana Melina.
And then the big one is Sonya, Jax, and Jarek is like a 3-part continuous story.
Yeah, it's
like The Godfather.
It's the most infamous cutscene in the entire series.
So
You know why Noob Saibot doesn't have a goddamn ending? Because they couldn't tack him onto someone else's.
yeah, probably.
I think Jax's version happens. The only difference is Sonya doesn't get thrown off like.
Well, here's the sequence of events. So the first one that happens is Sonya's. Sonya and Jarek are on a cliff. And just as a bit of setup, Jarek has actually been fighting with the good guys. Like, this is the main difference between him and Kano, is that when Earth is invaded by evil, Kano joined the evil, Jarek joined the good guys.
This is Jarek's single great redeeming feature.
Yeah,
He never comes up ever again.
Unlike Kano, he would not fight with the devil to take over Earth.
Yeah.
So I guess Jarek thought, hey, I'm gonna do this, and once it's over, I'm gonna run and get away. Or maybe he was hoping for some kind of amnesty. Whatever the case, after the fighting is over, Sonya's like, all right, fighting is over, time to arrest you. And Jarek's like, the hell you will. And so they, I can't even call it having a fight. Jarek runs at Sonya. Sonya just sidesteps, and Jarek runs his ass off the cliff like an idiot.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Then there's the Jarek version is the exact same events, except Sonya then goes to her radio, is like, hey, Jax, come pick me up. And then a hand grabs her. Jarek has grabbed onto the edge of the cliff rather than falling off, and he throws her off the cliff. And then he steps on the radio and goes,
Yeah.
Then the Jax version happens, which is all of that, except as Jarek starts to walk away, Jax appears out of thin air, grabs him by the throat.
I want to remind you, he was radioing Sonya, asking if she was okay, from 10 feet away a second ago?
There are no trees on this cliff. There's nothing to hide behind. It is a flat surface in every direction. He just appeared out of thin air. He teleported in.
Why is he radioing her? He's right there!
He pulled a Jason Voorhees. He just walked out from off screen.
Yeah.
So then he throws Jarek off the cliff.
Yes.
But Sonya, for whatever reason, doesn't die or somehow. So.
Well, no, here's the thing. In the Jax version, Sonya has fallen off the cliff. Jax's ending wasn't supposed to be canon.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the Sonya version was canon.
Theoretically.
But when Armageddon would come out, Jarek would be one of the lucky few to get a bio for some reason.
Yes. And it's here that we get that closure. Jax threw him off a cliff.
Yes, Jarek's bio says that Jax said, "This is not brutality. It's a fatality," and threw him off a cliff. Like, it literally says the exact events of the ending happened.
I'm going to suggest
How did Sonya live then?
So what happened was, what you're missing is two crucial scenes where first Jarek and then Sonya grab a hold of the same branch and pull themselves back up.
Yeah.
This is the only reasonable way. Normally, I try to describe these things with a bit more dignity or nuance or provide additional details, but no. In this scenario, I choose to accept that Jax's ending completely happened and Sonya just climbed up a minute later. She was fine.
So Jarek ran off the cliff, grabbed it, and climbed back up. Then Sonya went off the cliff. And then Jarek went off the cliff and grabbed it and climbed back.
Yeah.
It specifically says, Jax dropped me into a ravine, assuming that would be the end of me. It would have been if I hadn't thrust my weapon into the cliff wall to slow my descent. I was badly injured, so I went into hiding. My rumored death would be the ultimate camouflage as I regain my strength. And then it says that Quan Chi finds him and recruits him to show up to Armageddon.
Yeah.
But Jarek, while he's in hiding, has been training to learn all the fatalities.
All the fatalities. Every one of them.
They use the word fatalities. He actually calls them that. Specifically because Jack said to him, this is not brutality. This is a fatality. Now, Jarek is obsessed with fatalities. That's his actual backstory in Armageddon.
That bio was not one of Vogel's best. I'll just say that.
No, it's so fucking bad.
It's so bad it's good. It's like Annihilation.
Ugh.
But anyway, so...
It's like how I love the Power Glove.
Yeah. And, well, Liu Kang's ending happens where Katana, offers him a place to rule by her side.
Yeah, and he says, I can't accept this marriage proposal because I have to protect Earthrealm, and I'd have to live in Edenia with you instead of an Earthrealm. It wouldn't work out.
And I think Tobias' intention was that he would have accepted his MK5 or something.
Yeah. Tobias has said that after he left Midway, he actually, for fun, wrote a script, like a movie script for an MK5. And in his MK5, the main character is Liu Kang's son. Liu Kang is mysteriously deceased.
Yeah.
And the son has been trained to fight by Sonya and Jax. And he never said anything about what the bad guys would be or anything else about the plot, what Scorpion and Sub-Zero are up to, nothing but that. Just it would have been about Liu Kang having a son. So theoretically, Katana would be the mother. I don't know any other way to go with it than
assumes.
That. But yeah, so the thing is, this ending with this marriage proposal, even though he says no, is the first time in canon that it's actually acknowledged that there is a romance between Liu Kang and Katana. We had the movie, but in MK1 through 3, there's really no mention of the two of them. We know they spend time together. Liu Kang's ending in 3 has Katana appear in it. So, there's something between them, but they never outright say it's romantic until this 4 ending.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, going back to shortly after MK3 came out, I remember looking at Liu's MK3 ending and, where, Katana shows up and thanks him and whatnot. And I'm like, I feel like they're setting something up there.
Yeah. The thing is...
The element has always been there.
Tobias
before was just overt about it.
Tobias intended it from the beginning. We've talked before about his old notes of the Kitsune character who was supposed to be an MK1 as an NPC, and how that was supposed to be a love interest for Liu Kang. So it was always his intention, and that's why it's in the movie, because Tobias told them to put it in.
Yeah.
But in spite of all of that, because the game's never outright acknowledged it until 4, and because the 4 acknowledgement looks more like a breakup, what you get up until the NRS era, where in Shaolin Monks it's a romance, in 9 it's a romance, up until that, you had all these people on message boards who used to these are people who don't like romance in stories and don't want to see it, and they would just vehemently deny that there was anything between Liu and Katana, and it was just real obnoxious to put up with.
Those people dumb.
Yeah.
That was always there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's just the point I want to make, is that it was always there. But, so yeah, the other endings...
Katana's ending happened.
Yeah, Katana's ending happened. We know that Melina fell into a pit, and that pit led to a dungeon, and she's been rotting in that dungeon in secret. Everybody in that world and Edenia thinks that Melina died a long time ago. They don't know that she came back and that Katana has her in a dungeon. And so that's where her deception story starts, with Baraka finding her in that dungeon and setting her free. He's like, you work for Onaga now.
Yeah.
So there's also Kai's ending, in which
Raiden gives him his staff.
Yeah, as a reward for helping defeat Shinnok, which means he must have done something. We don't know what, but something.
As a reward for exemplary service, you get the staff.
Yeah. Raiden he's ascending to Elder God status. He doesn't need a staff anymore, and apparently the staff has inherent magical powers that will lead Kai on the path to immortality.
Yeah.
Kai would later give that staff back.
Yeah, he just gave it up. Just in Deception Conquest mode, he just hands it over. He's like, hey, Shujinko, can you give this to Kung Lao to give to Raiden for me? I don't need this anymore. I don't need it anymore.
No, obviously,
I'm good.
Fujin's endings both happen.
Yeah, that's Fujin. A lot of people wonder where Fujin is in the 3D era, because if he's like the Deadly Alliance acknowledges Raiden became an Elder God and put Fujin in charge of Earth. So where the hell is Fujin? And the answer to that is that Earth isn't actually being attacked during Deadly Alliance or
so Raiden
Deception.
told Fujin to stay behind.
Yeah. Fujin is guarding Earth, and the actual main plots of DA and Deception both happen in Outworld. And the story of that is Raiden taking a strike team into Outworld to do an unsanctioned preliminary strike to get them before they come for us. The one example you could argue against this is that, well, the Deadly Alliance did sneak into Earth and kill Liu Kang. Where was Fujin then? That's a valid question. But that's the only time that they do anything to Earth, because they're planning to take over the realms, but they never get to it because they're defeated before they can. And that's why Fujin's not in those two games.
He's off
now,
doing his job.
Personally, in spite of that, I would still have put him in one of those two games, because Fujin, I like him better than I like Raiden, and I want to see him more often. Well, but that's all.
Well, one thing I will say, Raiden doing the things he did in Deadly Alliance, that would never happen in the NRS era.
I mean, it might. Like, Raiden does it in 11 to the Netherrealm. That's Dark Raiden, but still.
Yeah, but I mean, good Raiden wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, good Raiden, his character was a lot more proactive and helpful and compassionate to the Earthrealmers in the old timeline. Like, you always see him, like in 1 through 3, each of those games, he's willing to give up his immortality in order to help the heroes fight. And you can argue whether or not that's been retconned in 1 or 2, but at the time it happened. So that is intended to be part of Raiden's personality, is that he's the kind of person who would self-sacrifice in order to protect mortals.
Always was.
And yet, in the NRS era, he's much more of a stick-up-your-ass follower of the rules who's not quite as self-sacrificing.
Yeah. But my favorite ending might be Reptile's ending, just because only Reptile could get an ending where he helps the bad guys win, and they're like, fuck out of here with your bullshit.
This was a trend by this point, by the by. Reptile had been, fucked over in 2 straight games at this point. When Deadly Alliance came along and actually gave him Onaga taking control of his body, it wasn't just him being used. It was a power-up. It was the best he was going to get.
Yeah, they did want us to feel that Onaga was Reptile Plus. If you really think about it, it's Reptile being possessed and not in control of his own body, and it's not really Reptile.
It's not. It's the best he got up to that point.
Yeah, up to that point. It was doing something with him.
So Reptile's does not happen.
Well, the thing is,
neither does Baraka's.
Yeah, Reptile dies in his own ending. Baraka also dies in his own ending. It was just kind of like they were of the mood of well, if the bad guys are going to have endings too, and we know they're not canon. Let's at least have some fun with them, which I appreciate.
Oh yeah,
I do have to give like a really great like the Baraka ending is in the Deadly Alliance script.
Yeah.
So they were really kind of proud of the animation of that, apparently.
Yeah. I think
And
that was the main reason it's in there is because like it's the ending with the best animation. It is the best
does look
looking
really
one.
good, but honestly, there's also something about the dialogue that seems like it took a step up too. Like it's got so many great quotes like, "How do you rule a realm with no one? I am forced to preside over a dead realm with a madman." It's really memorable, honestly.
It's got a very moody vibe. I appreciate Baraka's ending.
It's cool.
Yeah, I love where I just wonder what Quan Chi says where it's like, now you will pay with your life. And he's like, I haven't a life to give you, fool.
Yeah.
I was like, what did he mean by that?
Well, he's from the Nether Realm. He's not alive.
He's dead. They're all dead people. Things.
I guess demons also don't count as alive. I wonder if they were suggesting Quan Chi doesn't have a soul?
I always looked at them as living dead back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, like...
Not zombies, but, like, not living people either.
Like, you get into, like, the story of what demons are, which was introduced in mythologies. They are, like, just the native beings that live in the Nether Realm, and there's some kind of... They're, like, forged in the pit, so, like, they're born crawling out of a pit of fire. They don't have mothers and fathers.
Yeah. But, I guess, well, it's like... What I was going to say is, I think we just, yeah, we got an idea of what happens after the ending. What does everyone do? Like, what does Reptile do during MK4? I don't think he does much.
I don't know. They fight. They just fight. Who do they fight? Where they fight? We don't know.
It's just they fight.
Before
we cannot tell you what happens during MK4. We have the setup. We have the endings. We don't have point B to C. We just don't. There's some fighting in Edenia. There's some fighting in the heavens. There's some fighting in the Netherrealm.
Yeah, I guess Johnny
Between
Cage,
that, you're free to make up anything you want.
Yeah,
I guess Johnny Cage's ending happens, even though it kind of glosses.
Yeah, Johnny's ending is just him at an awards show getting pelted with tomatoes because he's like giving a bad speech.
Yeah.
Which I guess there would have to be a time skip there because it's not just that he's come back to life; it's that he's immediately made a movie, and his first movie back won an Oscar.
And he's all like, "Hello." It's hilarious.
Yeah, they were probably like, "Hey, they said you were dead. How are you? Why are you back?"
We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about my new movie.
He starts getting pelted with shit because he's acting arrogant, and people. And the way that I was looked at it was like, the fact that he probably died and came back became public knowledge, and people got sick of his arrogance and his shit. It's like, what are you talking about? You want a real challenge, bitch? You fucking died.
Here's my thought is that if someone, even if you knew about Outworld and Monsters and all of that was in the news as public knowledge after 3, even then, I think the public would be more inclined to believe Johnny faked his death for the press. And they'd be pissed about that. Like, oh, maybe he was lying low to dodge his taxes, you know?
Oh, I can totally.
Here's the other thing: is Deadly Alliance tells us that he did make movies based on Mortal Kombat, like that really happened.
The death of Johnny Cage is one.
So in theory, the film he's receiving an award for is Mortal Kombat 2. That won an Oscar.
Yeah.
For what? Best makeup?
No, it must have been Best Actor since he got the award.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, how the hell did he win an award for an action movie at the Oscars?
Yeah. But it's like he's like,
I don't know, maybe it's a lifetime achievement award because he's the only actor who's ever died and come back.
Well, he's like, when am I gonna get some real competition? They're like, what?
Yeah, they start booing him and throwing shit. And he's like, I saw that, Arnold.
Are they talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger? I wonder.
You know what's funny? There was going to be a voice line in 11, like fighting the Terminator, that references that, and they cut it.
Ah.
Like, it was found in the data mining, and it's just not in the final game.
What did he say?
I don't know. He just says it again. He's fighting Terminator. He says, "I saw that, Arnold."
Yeah, I like to believe that was Arnold Schwarzenegger who he was saying that to.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yes, obviously.
Yeah.
But so, what have we not talked about? I guess we talked about.
Okay, so there's Shinnok's ending where he's blowing up Raiden, like torturing him and killing him.
Doesn't happen.
And that takes place in the Nether Realm. That's on the bridge from the final fight of Mythologies. So there's Raiden in the Nether Realm for you.
Probably not willingly.
No, probably not. But it can be done. I'm just saying, like, he's not impossible for him to exist there. It's just not a good place for him to be.
But obviously, Shinnok's ending is not canon.
Yeah, of course not.
Because
in Raiden's own ending, it's the Elder Gods telling him that, hey, thanks for killing Shinnok for us. You can be an Elder God now. And it's like, there's kind of a funny animation where he's flying in the sky, and a blue face appears to speak to him. So it's like, it's not in the room that's a stage. It's just out in the open. So the blue faces can kind of, they can do that anywhere. It's just easier to get their attention and have an audience with them if you choose to go there, I guess. But yeah, so Raiden talks to the blue face and becomes an Elder God. And then there's an amusing transition, I guess it's supposed to be metaphorical, where the blue face becomes Raiden's face and Raiden's filling up the whole screen.
Yeah.
He did it. He lived the dream.
Yeah.
And that ended up kind of being the basis for the One Being's appearance in MKX for some,
Well, I don't know if they were thinking of that. I think they were just thinking
so.
if he is the
it's just
universe,
face in the clouds.
Yeah, if he is the universe, if all the stuff of the realms is made up of him, what would he look like? Well, I think you'd have to just have him be a face coming out of reality.
And also, I think in Battle of the Rounds, when the One Being is summoned, like, he's just an indistinct humanoid silhouette, I think.
Yeah, it was just like a shape of light that merges with Shinnok's body, and then Shinnok is basically corrupted Shinnok, or Dark Khan was like the basis for the design. Pretty boring.
Well, you can't comprehend.
Yeah, I think we've talked. Oh, there was one more. Quan Chi's ending is the one where he reveals that he has the real amulet.
And
notable for imparting a fact, not necessarily for being canon.
Yeah, I do like the dialogue where he's like, as your reward for helping me conquer the realms, I give you the gift of your existence.
My existence?
Yeah.
He's so offended. He's so put off.
Yeah. Like, I did all this shit for you, and you're just saying the reward is you won't kill me.
Yeah, I absorb all energies, but I will spare you.
Yeah, and then Quan Chi tanks a fireball to the chest. It does nothing, and that's where my thought of whenever Shinnok is shooting a fireball, Quan Chi is the reason that fireball is effective. That's where that thought comes from. Because he shoots a fireball at Quan, it does nothing. Quan is like, haha, I have the real amulet, and then he blows Shinnok up.
Yeah. But obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah. And then Goro doesn't have an ending. I mean, Kung Lao's ending might as well be Goro's.
Yeah, but we don't know if Goro even had a match with Liu Kang or anything like that.
I would like to think that he actually did.
There's like to believe.
There's nothing anywhere that actually says it happened, but I've always believed, especially for the purposes of like where I take the character during my version of Armageddon's events, that they have that match, and that's where Goro realizes that Liu Kang's been nothing but improving, and that Liu's probably taking it easy on him or some shit. I think that they do have a match.
Well, here's a thought that I have had is that so Liu Kang's bio says that when Shinnok takes over Edenia, Liu tries to free it by himself and can't do it and has to go back for friends. So I wonder what if when the invasion starts, Liu Kang was already in Edenia visiting Kitana? And in like a rewrite where you try to make the game better, Liu Kang should have been present for that meeting where Kitana is trying to make peace between the Centaurs and the Shokan, and Goro shows up. Like, Liu should have been in that scene, and Goro should have been showing up because Liu Kang is there. And then while I'm here, let me use my influence to do this because it's the right thing to do. And then I would actually like to see Liu and Goro both trying to fight off Shinnok's forces at the start of that invasion, like working together.
I find that believable.
And then like they can't overcome them. There's too many demons, and Liu's like, I will go back to Earthrealm and get help. And Goro's like, I'll hold them off for as long as I can until you come back. You know, see like because this is the first game where Goro's not a bad guy. Like, he never joins Shinnok's side. He is explicitly an ally of Kitana from this point until they fucked him up in Deception. So I would like to see Goro fighting with the good guys, like actively, and actually like alongside Liu Kang, and maybe that's where he decides to put the grudge aside, is because he's gained respect for him fighting side by side with him. So that's sort of what I would have done. And then yeah, Noob Saibot doesn't have a fucking ending. Sector's ending is basically just Cyrax's, except he kills everybody. I think that's every character. We've covered the whole roster.
All right. Well, I think we've just about done. So,
as a side note, as one last note, I wish Belloc was real.
Oh, we forgot about Meat.
Oh yeah, Meat is there. Meat doesn't have a story. He's just a skin for everybody else. He's just like an Easter egg. But
he's around. He's giving people money in the background.
Meat would get a backstory in Armageddon, like he'd finally become a real character. And the backstory of Meat is Shang Tsung keeps spare bodies in the flesh pits. Bodies that don't have skin yet. And these bodies are clones of himself, so that if he ever dies, he could put his soul in one of them and not be dead. But Meat is a body that accidentally woke up, came to life, and escaped the flesh pits. So technically, Meat is a clone of Shang Tsung that just doesn't have skin because it's not finished.
Yeah.
And I choose to believe that Meat had all sorts of wacky adventures and learned the meaning of love and friendship.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Belloc. So the guys who made MK Gold were a third party who were basically just making a port. And I guess Midway handed them the assets to make, Sector Cyrax, Kitana, Melina, Kung Lao, and Baraka. They didn't do a great job of it. Gold is jank as fuck. But yeah, so this company, Eurocom, was also, they had started to build a model for and pitched the idea of a new sub-boss, a new Goro-sized character who would be a big red-skinned demon with black horns. Kind of looks like Tim Curry in Legend.
Yeah, which may or may not
absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, but what's interesting about Belloc is that if you look at the MK4 and Gold roster, there are actually no demons on this roster. Like, there was a point in pre-production where they were trying to decide what characters to have from mythologies, and Serena almost got in. But
I was actually about to mention the fact that Serena, Jataka, and Kia should probably be involved in all this at some point.
They should. They weren't, but they should be. Like, Serena... So at the time, Serena appears to have died at the end of Mythologies. We don't find out that she's still alive until the Game Boy version of Deadly Alliance.
Tournament.
So when MK4 came out, Serena was dead. They could have brought her back. They could have put her in the game, but as far as the fans knew, she was dead. But Kia and Jataka should have appeared as NPCs or some shit. But But yeah, so Serena did not make it in. So as a result, there are actually no demons in the roster of the game where the bad guys are hell. There are a couple undead people, but there are no demons. Unless you count Quan Chi, I guess. So I think Belloc would have been very fitting as like some kind of sub-boss character. He would have represented the Oni and the monsters that live in the Netherrealm.
And then, in true Mortal Kombat sub-boss fashion, we'd never have seen him again for 17 years.
Yeah, probably not. But Midway did not let Eurocom put this character in the game because they didn't create him. You know, it's not our character. You're not going to do that. Which I get it. But you could have, you know, taken ownership of that idea. Like, I don't know what the wording in the contracts was, but it feels like work for hire to me. If you make Belloc, we own Belloc. I would have taken that.
People have tried to get their hands into that Mortal Kombat pie.
Yeah, I think you know, Tobias and Boone were probably real sensitive to that kind of stuff because you had Malibu making its own characters, and Lawrence Kazanov. I don't know what their relationship with him was at the time. It was probably still positive, but I do know that when WB acquired Midway and they were working on MK9, Kazanov was suing because his argument was that although Midway created the characters, the personalities of the characters were first created in the movie, and therefore he owns a piece of them. That was his argument. And I don't agree with that argument, and I don't think he won the loss. Actually, I think there was some kind of settlement because his name still appears as a producer sometimes on WB Mortal Kombat stuff. So I think they did work out a deal where we don't agree with you that you own this, but we'll let you have a little bit of money every time we make something so that you'll shut up and leave us alone.
I guess that
which is a lot of producer credits in a lot of movies are basically that. We're letting you have a small bit of money when we make a thing so that you'll stay out of it.
Yeah.
And we have that awkward, weird plan for the SNES version of MK1 that never wound up happening, where there's going to be like a Dark Raiden, like doppelganger versions of the characters. Pretty much from the beginning, people have been trying to get their hands into that pie.
Yeah, if I was Tobias, Belloc would probably remind me a bit of James Fink trying to make his own fan fiction.
Yeah.
I know there are people who think the idea of MK1 Nitro would have been cool to see. It doesn't appeal to me at all. And if I was Tobias, I would be a little offended that like the Activision guys who are porting the game want to shove their fanfic into my game, because you know, as the lead writer, as the creator, you want it to be your vision, you know. But all I'm saying is Belloc is a cool idea, and if somebody was offering it to me, I would take it. That's all.
OC character done at steel.
Well,
but maybe 4 should have some fucking demons in it. That's all I'm saying. Maybe they should have done something with the idea of the forces of hell
trying to fight heaven.
Heaven and Earth. Like, MK4, much like DA and Deception, is a game where nobody actually, like, attacks Earth realm.
Yeah.
For a change.
Yeah, for a change, but it's also, wouldn't it be cool if they did? You know, like, if you think of the famous line from Night of the Living Dead, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. That's the first thought that comes to my mind, that line, every time I think, what could MK4 be like if they did it good? It's like, dude, a zombie apocalypse. It's the Book of Revelations. It's DC's Blackest Night. It's the dead rising from the grave. It's
MK4 is literally Satan gets up out of his chair, just starts fucking shit up, and nothing.
Imagine
You'll get none of it.
Imagine the civilian population of the Earth who barely knows anything, even after 3 has happened. All they sort of know is that they kind of passed out for a week, and when they woke up, New York had a lot of damage. And maybe some people saw some monsters, and maybe they have like vague memories and bad dreams of being a stolen soul. Nobody really knows what's going on. Now imagine a couple years later, you get concrete proof that heaven and hell are real because the end of the world is happening.
Yeah.
That's what MK4 should be. Even MKX did it for 1 chapter and none of the rest. Like, it's really disappointing. I think it's the coolest story in the franchise, and they've never actually done it.
Yeah. So I think what the point is, MK goes for these highs and lows all the time, with the 4th game always being the worst one.
It is true. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. DA Deception Armageddon versus DC. 9, 10, 11, 12. The 4th one is always the bad one.
Well, Christ.
Maybe that means 13 will be a good game.
It'll be the start of a new reboot, which will go.
I don't want to give hope where I can't. You know, that's.
But before we end, I want to say I really hope John Tobias is writing those character histories on the collection.
Yeah, I don't trust anyone else to do it. That's for damn sure.
Apparently, some of the admin of Mortal Kombat Online is involved with those documentary elements. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Because I don't want Dom anywhere near them.
Tapmog knows those guys. Well, I think Dom, again, NRS is not making the collection. Digital Eclipse is making the collection. And that's a good thing. Like, I think the way things are now, that's the best case scenario. The only way we're going to get good Mortal Kombat is from a third party. You know, because then at least they're probably fans and not people who are like just, you know, punching the clock and have been working on it for 30 years and have gotten bored of the classic elements.
Yeah.
If Ed is feeling nostalgic, you know, weren't those, isn't that just what cameos were about? Like, there's no guarantee that those feelings are going to lead to a whole game of old timeline elements, you know?
Yeah.
All right. I think we're about done.
Yeah. So next time we'll talk about, I guess, maybe...
There's no reason to cover the storylines of Deadly Alliance and Deception. They're very well established already.
Yeah, there are no vagaries. Like, we could just recount them event to event.
I guess after we're done this, we could do what we would have done after Armageddon. But I guess you've done that probably.
We have.
Yeah. There's a whole video about. Well, there's 2 videos about it. There's one that's you and Smokeman's ideas, and then there's a whole separate idea that's just me. But yeah, those were episodes of the Patron cast. You can find those on the NetherKast channel.
Yeah. But I guess after this we can talk about we got Armageddon's the one that we have to kind of make stuff up because that's the one that doesn't
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there is a canon answer of like, well, everybody died at the end. But that's also sort of not.
Well, that's yes
the 9.
No.
That's the 9 version of events where Shao Kahn wins. There's the
Taven version of events. It's a branching.
Yeah,
point.
yeah. We now have via Chronica. We now have proof that there's been multiple timelines and multiple Armageddons, and Taven did win, and then versus DC happened. Like, Chronica created a new universe, and then she created another new one where Shao Kahn wins and 9 happens, and like
that would mean there was some version where Shao and Monks happened.
The big giveaway that all this is true is Raiden's medallion did not exist in the old timeline, and there are lines of dialogue in the 11 intros where they specifically say Chronica introduced Raiden's medallion. Like, she gave it to the Elder Gods to give to him as part of her manipulations.
Oh, look at
So-
that.
Or
It's-
he
It's
must
5
believe it
past.
was
I don't give a shit about this o'clock.
Yeah.
All
But yeah,
right.
just to establish, it is in fact canon that there's a timeline where Raiden didn't have a medallion and Taven won Armageddon, and there's a timeline where Raiden did have a medallion and Shao Kahn won Armageddon.
Yeah. But we'll cover that some other time. I guess next time we'll do. I guess we got to cover some of the 3D stuff next time. I guess we could do Deadly Alliance Deception.
I mean, we could certainly do it. It would be quicker, is the thing. It would just be me reading off a list, because we do have on the NetherKast Discord, in the lore channel, we have pinned messages where I went through DA and Deception, like all the conquest modes and the bios and endings, and I put things in order, event by event. So I could just read that off.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. I got to get to bed soon.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. I thought it was going to be shorter, but it always
No.
No.
Why do you do this?
Imagine
Over and
thinking.
over and over. We don't shut
Imagine.
up.
It could not be me.
Yeah, I know. That's why I love you guys. You guys, I mean, hey, you're passionate about MK. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
I'm becoming passionate about MK for the first time in a long time.
Well,
It doesn't give me the urge to die anymore.
The people on Reddit whose only knowledge of the series is NRS games and are really mad that we don't like 12 would disagree with our passion, but
Well, actually,
They're Redditors. I don't care about their opinion.
Well,
Yeah.
when someone brings up stuff from the old timeline, people are like, "Wow, that sounds way better than what we got now."
they
Yeah,
do
fancy
say that.
that.
But then some of the same people also say, but I like alternate realities. I like seeing a new version. And it's like, do you though? Like, what about it do you like? Is it just because it's
Look,
new and different,
MK's
or is there some inherent
MK's
value?
a huge franchise with a huge fan base, and they're everywhere. And there are people who like the series for different reasons, and there always have been. And
Yeah, but
you're not going to make everyone happy, and not everyone
A
is
point-
going to like the same thing. And
a point I would like to make
seek out.
is that franchises that don't have multiple timelines have less division in their fan base than franchises that do have multiple timelines.
Like,
I don't know, man. I think that Star Trek's got multiple timelines, and everyone fucking hates those films.
yeah, but they have one prime.
I've seen, you would not believe, I've seen people fucking defend Discovery, and I hate being around those kinds of people, but they do exist.
Well, with Star Trek, you have the prime timeline and you have the Kelvin timeline. I guess
It gets
but-
more complicated because Discovery and Strange New Worlds have used the fact that there was a time traveler war in Enterprise to excuse the fact that there are differences between those shows and TOS. So it's like there are multiple timelines, but there's also been alterations to the main timeline that you don't necessarily have to put up with if you only watch the originals in the Berman era.
All right, I'm hungry. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good night.
See you later, nerds.